To the point, though, that some have made that this kind of climate in which the scandals are largely sexual in nature and speak to, as it were, men behaving badly, it makes it more difficult for women to embrace this as a career for themselves, or public service for that matter, seeing the kind of blood sport where this is the norm. Do you want to speak to that?
No, because I'm not sure I can or should. I mean, I'm not sure I agree with the premise, but I don't know enough to disagree either. No, I'm not sure. I don't know if women are avoiding politics because of that. I just don't know. I hope not.
Well, women are underrepresented in electoral politics.
That is no question about that. I'm not sure the reason for it is that women are refusing to get in because of that particular reason. Would I like to see more women in politics? Absolutely. Do I think we would,
Do you think they're turned off by this kind of climate in which...
That certainly could be. I mean, but again, I don't know if that's... I'm not disagreeing. I just don't know enough. I would come at it from a different point. Many people made the argument, and it began kind of as a throwaway comment, but then the more people looked at it, the more they appreciated it. If women had been in charge of our financial services sector in regulatory capacities, we probably would not have had a crisis.
And if we had a governor in 2008 that was a woman, do you think we'd have a different outcome?
Oh, that I'm not going to talk about.
That's a fair question.
It's about a lot of fair questions I don't need to answer.
All right. Other than babysitting, what will you do if you don't win, other than babysitting Scott's?
Look, first of all, Scott's going to have to tell me what I'll get paid. I mean, I was flattered that he offered the job to me.
I think he since rescinded. I think he and his wife might have rescinded.
Oh, is that right? Okay, well, all right. I don't know. On the other hand, there was an offer and an agreement. We had a contract. I'll go back to my law school days. I think I may have a job offer that I have the capacity to enforce.
You can take legal action.
Absolutely. Look, I haven't thought about it. What I will do if I don't win. I've done many things. We have a family business. We have a foundation. I have written. There are many things that are there. I've cows to feed. Many different things I might do.
Literally? Do you have cows somewhere to feed that you want to talk a little bit more about?
I have 20 cows upstate that don't depend upon me Monday through Friday, but on weekends, if I'm there, I feed the cows.
Will you run for governor again?
I've refused to say anything definitive about running for any other office, just because I don't think about it. People ask the question, is this a stepping stone?
People genuinely don't believe you don't think about it.
I don't think about it. And here's what, when I ran for Attorney General, I didn't have a single thought about running for governor. I just didn't. You do the job. If you do it well, other things happen. If you don't do it well, it doesn't matter. The only thing I think about is what is this job and how do I do it well?
So even when people were buzzing about you potentially being the first Jewish president of the United States of America, it never seeped into your own consciousness.
But do you know what my thought was? I'm never going to be president.
Do you still have the same thought?
Yeah, I'm never going to be president. That for a different reason, but back then, there's a simple reason. I was wrong on terms of the national... Now, I may have been wrong about that in terms of how the politics played out, but I was wrong on choice, guns, same-sex marriage, Wall Street, economic theories. I was just way out of line.
And weren't you worried back then that your own personal mistakes as they were going on would ultimately also undo you?
But that wasn't the reason I never thought I'd be president. You asked about the presidency. I said I will never be president because, my aspiration was to be a progressive governor who stood for principles of governance that would sort of define a new progressive agenda. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
You spoke a little bit about growing up in Riverdale in those early years. I wanted you to share a little bit about that, you in the Bronx. Your Bronx residents are going to be tuning in.
It was a great community. This was back in the 60s and 70s. I was born in 59. And so, look, the 60s evoke a different image, but I was a kid, literally a kid. I was 13 in 72 when McGovern was elected, which was for me sort of the first moment of political consciousness. So that, 68, which is for people who are a bit older than I, the great pivot point, is I was a little young to remember that with great clarity. But I do remember when we elected Nixon saying, how can we do that? And from then through high school, went to Horseman, grew up in Riverdale. It was bucolic. It was beautiful. I mean, it was just, even then, before the great revival of the Bronx that we've seen in the past couple of years, I loved living up here. And I always said it was the best of both. It was close to Manhattan, so you could go down to whatever Manhattan stood for, but also we had a backyard and we could play and I could be a kid.
You championed as governor, so you were looking to be a progressive governor, and as such, and even before you championed same-sex marriage and the licenses for undocumented immigrants. as controller, you wouldn't necessarily be in a position to do the same kind of work, but you could be an advocate. And I'm wondering if you could point to the issues that you would be advocating for.
I mean, I think it is economic justice issues right now that define where we are. We are seeing a city where those who do well do extraordinarily well, but we are seeing a middle class that is being squeezed. The question is, how do you both continue an economic climate which generates the jobs that will pay well, the high-tech jobs, the biotech jobs, financial services is still a critical piece of it. And here I think we need to figure out a new economic agenda. Wall Street will not be the economic engine for the next 10 years. And the bubble eras pushed a great deal of wealth into the city, but I don't think anybody, even on Wall Street, anticipates that era will be resuscitated. So the question is, how do we generate economic wealth that will be there for the middle class and those who aspire to the middle class? And some of it is, again, investing in infrastructure, our educational system, massive construction of housing, because those are the pressure points in terms of economic well-being for people.
You'll have over 700 posts to fill. Certainly you'll be doing that with a team of people. What kind of focus are you going to have in terms of the people that you look to retain, given your background?
First of all, I'm not sure, one point of clarity, I don't think I get to fill 700. I think a lot of those are actually civil service positions.
Right.
So the number of positions that will actually be discretionary to the controllers is much more significantly limited. But I think people should look at what I did when I was Attorney General, where I think I can fairly say I built the best law firm in the country. The most diverse, most skilled, most creative, most publicly conscious, and brought together a bunch of lawyers who did it the right way. And all the cases we made, the things we did, were basically the ideas of other people. So I got to claim credit for it, but it was a matter of recruiting people who had a sense of public purpose, public spirit, skills, and now control. Obviously, a lot of his financial skills, auditing skills, investing skills. That's different than being the AG. But in terms of how you do it, that's the model I would point to.
Kathleen Parker or Joe Bruno, which is the worst sparring partner? The best one.
Well, Kathleen and I had a great time. Kathleen and I had a great time at CNN. The TV shows, as you know, are always being reconfigured and remodeled, and how that was up to Ken Jouts, who was the president of CNN, what to do with the show. But Kathleen and I had a great time.
As opposed to you and Joe Bruno.
Well, with Joe, it was bizarrely, it worked well up to a point when he then closed the door. It worked well. It worked well until June of 2007. We passed a great budget, compromised, and you could go back to the commentary. Day after day, we were doing press conferences where he was saying it's great to have a governor who works with us, blah, blah, blah. Then they left that session without passing any bills because I think they made a determination for some internal reasons. They didn't want to play ball at that point, which is fine. We came back, but even thereafter, we got an agreement on campaign finance reform, all sorts of things that, Joe was difficult and sometimes hard to figure out, but that's the nature.
Would the same not be said for you?
Yeah. So I didn't say it necessarily critically. To be difficult and hard to figure out sometimes is a good thing, like the Delphic Oracle.
Governor Patterson has lent his support to Scott Stringer, your opponent, but was a good friend and continues to be a good friend. I'm wondering if that's a difficult relationship to traverse.
David and I spent an hour on the radio last Friday evening on his radio show. We had a great time. I mean, look, David endorsed Scott, and I don't say this to undercut the endorsement. I'll let him deal with whatever he wants to do. Before I was in the race, as a lot of people had, I think David has tried since then to make it clear we're good friends and we get along great. And political endorsements are one thing. Friendship, hopefully, is something more significant.
If you were elected controller, you would need to work with a number of groups, not elected officials, but a number of groups who've expressed dismay at the fact that you've entered the race. You'd be doing their work and helping them, or in your mind, and yet they've said that they don't even want you to run. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that now.
Such as? I'm just trying to figure out.
Advocacy groups, unions. I mean, they've specifically said that you're involving yourself yet again in this particular arena. It's a disgrace.
Yeah, politics is politics. A lot of people say things, and then they wake up the next morning and they say, "Okay, you won. Let's work together."
So no holding grudges.
I never have, and the sort of image of the folks who are angry. I mean, as I said, Hank Greenberg and Ken Langone. If you watch their interviews about me, you can just kind of feel it oozing out of them. But I think if you look at the record, that's because we were right about the economy in Wall Street, what was going on, and so that's fine. No, I don't.
All right, finally, House of Cards or Game of Thrones?
You know, you're exposing a huge cultural void on my part. I've watched neither. I've heard they are both great, and I have both of them on DVD, but I've had a busy summer.
And what do you watch when it is time for you to watch something other than this?
I watch sports, and I hit the mute button whenever I see a political spot.
Even your own?
Not mine, I turn up the volume.
Of course, of course. Very good. Well, I'm all done.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, my pleasure.